A lot of people don't like the idea of selling. There's a particular feeling that arises in people if you talk to them about having to make a sale. And I would say that for most people, it's not a feeling that they like. This can feel even less appealing if what you're selling is considered intangible, such as a coach, a consultant, a freelancer, essentially when you're selling the work that you do. And yet, as a business, you're trying to make money, and selling your service is how you do that. This means that there is a natural and often pressing need to make the sale, which can feel in conflict with your desire to be authentic. In other words, if you're at all ethically minded, it can feel like selling is ideologically opposed to how you work. I'm Simon Batchelor, and in this video I'll explain how you can balance being authentic with selling in a way that doesn't feel conflicting. I believe that selling doesn't have to be bad. I think it's that stereotype of the used car salesperson that has given selling such a bad name. Most people have been on the receiving end of relentless persuasion, pressure, manipulation, and sometimes even outright false promises from someone desperate to make a sale no matter what, and it isn't fun. There is, however, another way to make a sale. It's not talked about so much because it doesn't actually focus really on the selling bit of selling. It's actually more like trying not to sell anything at all. And I find that it feels a lot better for the seller, and when the sale is made, the client feels great too. So instead of the sales pitch, what we're offering them is a journey. And this non-selling sales technique is not as quick as traditional sales methods. And that's why it works so well when you're selling something that is a considered purchase, like coaching or consulting. The idea is to focus on the questions that the client may have. Then answer those questions to guide them to a point where they understand what the change is that they want to make. They trust you to deliver on the promise, and what they want to know is how they can get started. The process is like a journey that the client goes on. The first step is unaware. They begin by being unaware that there's something in their life that they might like to change. Now, this could either be personally or in their business. It might be an action, a thought, or a process that they're repeating. This is how most people are most of the time. The next step is curious. At some point, they become aware that this thing in their life is something that is connected to another way of being, and they're curious to find out more. What I mean by this is that they see an opportunity for change. They see that with the right change, they can get to a place that they might want to be. The next step is inspired. At this point, they feel inspired to find out more about this change and how they might get from where they are now to that new desirable destination. Their questions tend to focus on what the process of change involves and how much effort and investment and time that will take. The final stage of the journey is motivated. At this point, they are likely to be motivated to look for someone to guide them in making that change. Someone who knows the process and has guided others before. Ethical marketing is all about providing what the client is looking for at all 4 stages of this journey. This is how you can sell without selling. The journey itself attracts the clients you're looking for. It's not a sales pitch, a special offer, or an opportunity of a lifetime. What you do is you set this journey up and then you act as a guide for those who want to know, explore, and discover more. Once they understand and believe that the change they have discovered is one they want to make, they'll naturally progress to finding a guide. This could be a coach, a course, a book, a video, a podcast, or even consultancy. So to create a compelling journey, what we're actually going to do is start at the destination and work backwards. So by reframing the selling process into that journey for a client, rather than relying on this high-pressure sales conversation, it becomes a lot more enjoyable for both you and the client. So where do we start? Well, we start at the end point. And what we do is we create an offer that your ideal client is looking to buy. In this way, you're not trying to persuade them to buy what you're trying to sell them. You're just offering something that they're already interested in. Now, this is the best place to start because when people are motivated to make a change, you've actually got something to offer them. So start here. The next step is to explain how that process of change works. This is where you explain how the client can go from where they are now to where they want to be. You explain what steps are involved and how they can take the next step after the next step after the next step. You can then point them to your offer to guide them to that destination, which is the step you created first. Next, what you do is you create content that links together ideas or concepts that they might not have connected themselves. You can explain key principles that underpin the work you do. You can offer up answers to common questions that you get asked. And for those that want to know more, you can point them to your explanation of the process that you created in the previous step. Next, we think about the people who are looking for change, but maybe don't even know that change is yet possible. So what we do is we grab attention with some short, simple, thought-provoking ideas that are quick and easy to understand and consider further. If they're curious, we then point them to the content that we created in the previous step. If they're then inspired to make a change, you can explain the process of that change, and then if they're motivated, you can then go on to offer them something that they're really interested in buying. You might be thinking, this all sounds great, Simon, but I still have to make the sale at the end of it, don't I? Yes, you do, and that is still the goal of ethical marketing. However, without that high-pressure sales call, it'll feel a lot less like selling. Often when I explain this process in a workshop, this is the point where someone asks me, without me prompting them, Simon, this sounds great, how can I work with you to make this happen? Now, why does that question get asked? Well, it's because they understand the change that they want to make and they're ready to take that next step. Because I've just guided them through the process and I've shown them that where they are now is connected to where they want to be and how they can go about making that change. So the natural next step for them is to ask the question of how do I get started? So instead of me trying to sell courses, sessions or programs to people who are unaware that they can even make a change, all I'm doing is confirming that person's understanding that the change they've identified is one they want to make, and I'm offering them the next step to get started. This process really doesn't feel like selling. In fact, it isn't a classic sales tactic at all, but yet it often ends in a potential sale. So for this to work, what we do is we focus on making the steps rather than trying to close the sale. We help the client understand more about the change that is available to them. We help them see where they are now and how we connect that to where they might want to be. And taking people on this journey, you end up talking to people who are ready to do the work involved, who are ready to invest in making that change happen. You're not trying to sell, you're just being authentic. So this has been a very brief overview of how this process works, and I go into a lot more detail about it in my book, Reframing Marketing, a 3-step guide to effective and ethical marketing. So if you want to create a journey for your ideal client to go on and have more conversations with people who are ready to do the work, then do consider giving it a read. You can order your copy directly from me at reframingmarketing.com. I'll see you in the next video.